Okay. Okay, guys, I'm glad to introduce SG to you, though he actually doesn't need any introduction. So I'm going to give a rambling introduction of, you know, for those of you who have followed advertising, he's one of the, what, when you say legendary figure, does that make you a very old guy? So he's a very legendary figure in that sense. But he's been involved with some amazing campaigns. Before you guys were born, there was a campaign for Red Eveready called Give Me Red. Just go and see it on YouTube. He was involved with that, and then he was with Reed Diffusion. Reed Diffusion was the hot shot creative agency of that time. All of us wanted jobs in Reed. Hey, SG, I never told you this. I went to Ajit called me for an interview,
Huh.
and I wanted a job in Reed. He gave me a job in PSI data. I said, anyway, so he was also involved with this Friday dressing in O&M, which was, to my mind, one of the best positioning campaigns. But SG has been a consultant now after his stints with Saatchi and everything. Celsius 100 is his own company. And one of the greatest things about SG is that he continually keeps reinventing himself. And he's now on this, he's been bitten by this startup bug. So he's been working closely with many startups. Some of them are abroad. I'm not going to name them, but um, the interesting thing was, whilst we have been working with startups, I don't know, Priyanka, you may not know that we did the first Mintra campaign, which made them
Yes, I'm aware, sir. Yeah.
famous. But later we stopped working for them. So I think we have had a stop-start relationship with startups. I don't know why. So I thought it'll be good if we get somebody who's closely working with startups and mentoring startups to tell our team how the startup mind works and what are the sort of strategies that have worked for SG in his dealing and mentoring startups. And then we should see how we can use this knowledge to build up our own capabilities. What are the gaps that we have in getting more business from this, and are we missing an important vertical or a business opportunity? I mean, that's really what I expected from this meeting. But SG, you're completely, as we discussed, you're free to, um, share your experiences in whatever manner. And we can probably, Priyanka, probably have questions at the end rather than, in the middle. Mhm.
Sure, sure,
So,
sure.
SG, please, the Zoom is
Okay.
yours.
Zoom is mine. Okay. Hi, everyone. So I don't want this to be a gyan giving session because I have no gyan to give. So we'll just chat, and you can stop me and ask any questions that you want, and I will try and see if we can find an answer to the best of my ability. So first, I am actually not as old as I look. I kind of stopped growing 25 years ago, so I can see my body far away, but I think I'm still quite young.
Hey, you still have that ambassador car
Yeah, I still have.
on which you spent what I earn in a year, you spent on that car. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
So,
Bongs and ambassador cars. Yeah, I tell you.
you see, I don't have money to buy, like a
Yeah, yeah, I believe. I
Lamborghini,
believe.
but
Yeah. If you
that
keep
car
all
I
your
can stop
savings in
every road corner. So it's which
yeah,
year?
okay, start.
Anyway,
Yeah, start.
so interesting for is like the word startup is actually the ulta of the word upstart. The word upstart, I think, was somewhere in the 1500s. Somebody used the word upstart, which basically meant an arrogant guy, who's risen suddenly. That was the meaning, and I don't think the meaning has changed too much. And that word got kind of inverted to startup in a Forbes article in 1976. So that's how that this whole idea of a startup, which is a budding company, came up. So remember, it is a budding company, which is this, and we'll sort of now, if you actually sort of do a word map of a startup, you will come across words like entrepreneur, entrepreneurship, equity, founder, Google, Apple, because these were the early startups. innovation, IT, fintech, Silicon Valley, Bengaluru, venture capital, angels. These are the kind of new vocabulary was created around these words. And they're interesting because all these words have, become part of our everyday lives. So let me tell you some stories. That how does a startup work? Actually, I have, I think in the early 90s or late 80s, I set up a company on my own, and I used to live in Calcutta those days. And the reason I set up a company was I had an idea, and the the product that I had built was a solid state stereophonic amplifier using silicon transistors. So I was always a kind of a car nut, electronics nut, basically like a geek. So I used to make these amplifiers and speaker systems, and many of the advertising industry people became my buyers. But I used to think that mine is the best. And my competitor at that point in time was another brand from Calcutta called Sonodyne. And there was
Yeah.
another brand from Bombay called Cosmic. Like these were the two brands I was competing, and I was pretty confident that my product was better than theirs. But unfortunately, I died. And so I'll get into the reason why I died in a minute. And along with that death, my idea got buried. And my idea was very simple, that I was going to make sound for the enthusiast, not sound for someone who's upgraded from. Uh, and those days there was an HMV monophonic player. Uh, so this whole concept of stereophonic amplifiers and speaker systems was just quite new, and I figured that there were, audiophiles who wanted a much better product than was available. So this was made for them. Anyway, so this died. And then that was the end of my startup. And many years later, uh, I helped to co-found a company, which all of you have seen. This is a company called Lithium. And the two sort of co-founders of that company is a guy called Sanjay Krishnan. Many of you have met him, and another guy called uh, Ashwin Mahesh. Now both these guys they are not youngsters. They are middle-aged people, but they have something in them which is quite different from people you meet of their age, who would be either a businessman or who would be working in a company as a manager, right? So if I were to sort of look through what I failed to do and what Sanjay and Ashwin did, was that they understood money, they understood finance, and how finance kind of is the nourishment for any idea that kind of fructifies and becomes a very big brand or a very big business. So I didn't understand money. So the first thing that I learned was that successful startups actually have a great understanding of money. So that was my first learning. And while since you live in Bangalore, you can't do away with this whole world of startups, which started with actually Tata Consulting Service somewhere in the 80s, and then uh, I think even before 80s, and then Infosys early 80s, and then progressively all these big companies which started. So if you see the stages through which these go through, it first goes through an idea. Like I had an idea, right? Every startup company starts with an idea. Now that idea can be my idea, and I use my life experience to say that this idea will work because lots of people that I know are facing this problem, or there is a new technology, and that new technology can solve a lot of problems, uh, like you're seeing today, like virtual reality, augmented reality, uh, you know, mm, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I mean, these are new things which are going on, right? And people who are involved in this believe that uh, they can change the world. All these startup ideas start with the hope. It starts with the hope, and that hope is, I can change the world. I can make life better. I can make life faster. I can make life more efficient. I can help you earn more money. I can reduce your pain. Oh, that's how it works. Which means that there is some good thing that will happen out of this. So it starts. So that is how it starts, with an idea, and then the guy who started with that idea will find some friend or someone who believes in that idea, and then two of them will beg, borrow, steal, and put in some money, and then they will make. They will start with a kind of a presentation, and then they will make. If it is a software product, they build a very very rudimentary software. If it is a physical product, they will make some kind of a prototype, and they'll make it work. Okay. Many of you would have heard something called an idea incubator. How many of you have heard of this word, idea incubator? Let's say, if everybody is silent, then I am talking to my screen.
No, I've heard it.
Okay, so I hope. So this idea incubator is a place where these ideas get translated into a product or a service. The product may be a physical product or a virtual product, and the incubator puts in a little bit of money to make that happen, right? And of course the incubator will own some part of the company. So there are some very very famous incubators. Like there's an incubator in California called Y Combinator. So all these companies like Skype and Airbnb and all these companies were incubated there. I got to see a little bit of that, because one of the companies that I mentor is a company called Oro Robotics. They were actually invited by Y Combinator, which at least in my memory, I don't know of any company which was invited. Quite obviously, the idea that these boys had, these were three engineers from IIT Kharagpur, were quite interesting, because it was an autonomous vehicle meant to work in campuses. And their model was based on an economic model, which means that the campus would save $50,000 per car per annum. So that is what it was based on. So anyway, so that little company got incubated in Y Combinator, and then the advantage with these incubators is they put you in a network where you can meet a lot of investors. Praveen, you've raised your hand. I'll just come to you in a minute. So they found an investor called RightCell, and RightCell basically bought majority shares of Oro Robotics. So Oro Robotics is now part of RightCell, and now they've taken the same technology and put it in cars which will operate on the road. So that's just a story. So the first level of capital that comes in is called seed capital. Now seed capital is basically organized, like Ashwin and Sanjay organize seed capital for lithium by talking to people like me and their friends and their families. That's where seed capital comes from. Somebody wants to say something. Is it? Stop me anytime. Yeah. Okay. So once you have seed capital, so like when lithium had seed capital, I was actually on the board of lithium that time. So we started our business, which is we bought cars and we sort of hired drivers, and we went to companies to sell our proposition, which was very simple, that we will save 40% of your transportation expenses. So why don't you use electric? So who will say no to that? And that business grew. So from 0 cars, seed capital helped us to get to a stage where we had about 500 cars. Okay. So I take an average price of say 7-8 lakhs for a car. So that's the amount of money that we raised. There were a lot of big investors. Praveen, you're saying something. Why don't you just say?
Sorry. I was just trying to answer your question earlier. Without interrupting, I raised my hand. I think it gave a different meaning.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks. So by the time we had about 500 cars and we had, you know, uh, we had proof that our idea works, and we had customers, and we had big customers like Tesco and Microsoft and Google. Uh, we we had a proposition which was worthy of inviting investments. So this is a critical stage that, you know, when we went from not having just an idea, then, you know, Ashwin and Sanjay put in their money, and then they sort of came and presented that idea to their friends and family, and then all of us put in some money, and then we started buying cars. So from there we got to 500 cars. So that idea obviously worked, uh, but in the process, what happened was, uh, I don't think Sanjay and Ashwin slept more than 2 hours a day, and we didn't have enough money to hire lots of people. So we hired a fleet manager and we hired an operations guy, and because lithium runs on, I mean, the real power of lithium is in the software. So we had to invest money in getting the software built. So all the money essentially went in building the infrastructure. Okay, and that is something that every startup will go through. So if you were to look into the mind of the startup founders, which is Ashwin and Sanjay, and some of us who were on the board at that time, and all of us who were on the board were all angel investors. We were trying to save every farthing, and we were trying to ask this question: is it an expenditure that we need, or is it an expenditure that we want? And as a result of that, uh, a lot of the expenditure which kind of looked like frivolous or looked like, you know, luxury, we were able to cut out, and we got to a stage where we were worthy of being invested. Lithium is an exception in the sense that from day one we were making operating profits. Of course, we did not cover lots of other costs, but car to car, every car was a profitable uh, in proposition. Then 3 years ago, then we went to the next stage, which is we went to a venture capital fund. So we went to, so this is the third stage. So you start with your own fund, then you get seed capital, which is friends and family, and then you get angel investors, which is like, you know, you could classify me as an angel investor, or all the people who invested in that idea. And now comes the third stage, which is venture capital. Now venture capital is essentially a group of, you know, very smart people who are kind of experts in certain domains. When I say expert, I mean people who have lots of experience in what works and what does not work, making that judgment in certain domains. So, for example, like in Bangalore, you had that company called Helion Ventures, which has now become, and the guy who started Helion Ventures is a chap called Kamaljeet Singh. So Kamaljeet has his own fund now, which is called Fireside Capital. He is absolutely a dada in the business of foods, of packaged foods. And the reason is because that's the background from where he comes. Uh, so Kamaljeet Singh used to be a marketing manager in Hindustan Lever, and he was actually my client. Uh, and he's the guy who's funded brands like you know, this ID, which makes your dosa mao, and now they've got coffee and they've got paratha and all these kind of things. Incidentally, Sridhar, did you see that the Maharashtra government has put 18% GST on paratha?
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah, there's something wrong with people. Anyway, so they invest in that kind of fund. Lightstone, which is a fund, a venture capital fund, which is out of a country called Liechtenstein, and this fund is owned by the royal family of Liechtenstein, but the fund is operated by very smart people. They invest in mobility. So one of the investors of lithium is Lightstone. So there are experts in this kind of business, and people who have a lot of money and don't know where to invest, they find such venture capital funds and give the money to them, and the venture capital fund promises a very, very good rate of return ROI on that capital. Essentially, these guys are, sharks. If you have a venture capital fund invested in you, then your life is going to be made miserable by them, because they will demand more and more and more money. Because they've taken somebody else's money and they promised them huge returns, as a result of which they want this business to grow very quickly, and they want to cut costs, and they make all kinds of demands. So obviously, it's a tough call. Then the next stage comes, and Lithium went through that stage, which is a bridge loan, which is the venture capital investment kind of runs out over a period of time, because you start scaling. So what happens is, when you go from your own fund, which is your seed capital, which is kind of little bit from your own pocket, and then you sort of borrow, and then you move into venture capital. Through this entire stage, two things happen. One is that people become acutely worried about money, because you're playing with somebody else's money. And second is, the money must be used for scaling, which is, whatever you do, you have to show business scaling, which essentially means, going back to Peter Drucker's definition of what is a business. The purpose of business is to create a customer. So unless you have very high level of customer acquisition, the VC will basically, they can throw out the CEO, they can change the board, and they can do all kinds of things, because they have financial control over the company. So what happens is that the founder's capital starts getting diluted as they start taking more and more money. Okay. So what happened in Lithium was that we went up to, I think, 1,500 cars with the money that we got, and then the demand was so high that we needed to buy more cars, and we also thought we'll try out buses, and people wanted better cars than what we were using. So we're using this Mahindra E2O and Mahindra Verito, but people wanted better cars. So now we have a fleet of Nexons and Tigors and some MG electrics. Where did the money come from? It came from bridge loans. Bridge loans are typically given by banks or financial institutions. So the purpose of taking a bridge loan is to take the money at a lower cost of interest, and then quickly expand the acquisition of customers. And then finally, you go to what is called an initial public offering, which is the enterprise transforms itself from being driven by entrepreneurs to a more corporatized, professionally managed company. So that's the journey of a startup. Do you have any questions up to here? Anyone can ask me whatever question you want.
Hey, Dada, how is Lithium doing? Yeah.
Currently, very bad. This lockdown has screwed them.
Yeah. Sorry,
No,
Priya.
I wanted to understand. You just mentioned how raising money from banks at a lower interest rate, and then or from some financial institution, and then going for an IPO. Is it? I mean, maybe lack of understanding from my level, but is that life cycle for the startup that you mentioned, or because if I'm not mistaken, IPOs are only done after the company matures and they are ready to go public and really talk about their assets. Yeah, can you please brief us more on that?
Yeah. So when you take a bridge loan, basically you are taking the bridge loan from a bank, because basically that is like the cheapest form of buying money, because you will get it at maybe 12-13%. You can negotiate with the bank, and there is no dilution of equity. The most important thing is the control that the founders have and the control that the VCs have at that point in time, and they don't want to dilute it. Okay. Because if you go back to another VC, then these VCs, they all fight with each other. I mean, I have had the experience of watching two VCs fight with each other in the lithium, office,
Mm,
because they want control. Okay,
mm,
so always remember this,
mm,
that money is actually, capital is a coward.
mm,
People want to invest in what would be a safe investment, which will give them a good rate of return, right?
mhm, mm,
Now, when the company scales to a point, right? When
mm,
the company scales to a point where
mm,
you are looking for expanding the capital base of the company
mm,
without tying yourself down to one or two big guys who
mm,
can take control over the board and
mm,
control over the decision making process, right?
mm,
And
mhm,
if you are large enough,
mm.
then it's time to get capital from the market, which is an IPO. That is the cheapest form of capital you can get. And
Okay.
capital against equity is the cheapest form of capital you can get. Okay,
Mhm,
that is when you go for an IPO, because you need. So just to give an example, it's like you had you had a small sort of bungalow. Okay,
mm,
and you broke
mm,
that bungalow and you made a three-story house. Okay,
mhm, mm,
and you broke that three-story house, or you rebuilt that three-story house, and you converted that into six apartments. Okay,
mhm,
and then what you did was you basically got an architect to design something. Okay,
mm,
uh, from that six apartments you got 12 apartments. You
mhm,
enlarged the foundation and you enlarged the area around the house, and you went and sold those additional six apartments that you've got to
mm,
six other people, right?
mhm, mhm.
So that is the VC stage.
Yeah.
Now, suppose you want to do some major modification, or you want to sort of acquire some more land.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how will you acquire some more land? The VCs will say, this acquisition of this land, there is no return on capital, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to give you. So what do? You hypothecate that land, and hypothecate the property, and you go and get money from the bank,
Yeah.
right? And tell the bank that I will pay you whatever 11,
Mm,
12% per annum, and
mm,
you please give me the money. Now what you do is you develop that land, right?
mm, mm,
And you start building, another sort of two towers.
mm.
That's when the business scales at a geometric level,
Sure.
right? So far you are scaling very, step by step.
Mhm,
Suddenly it becomes very big. So typically you will see that. So I'll give you another example. So I used to work with Chetan Maini when he was running Reva Electric Car Company.
Yeah.
Chetan never had the capital to scale.
Mm,
Okay. At its peak, Reva was making 100 cars a month.
yeah.
Uh, and if he had to scale, he would have to go and get money from. So that time there were two VCs who had invested, Global Environment Fund and Draper Fisher, and they didn't see their money growing, because
Mhm,
they had unfortunately invested maybe a little too early in the electric vehicle business. Uh, they didn't see, so they wanted an exit. So then these guys went and got, of all the people, Mahindra, and they
mm,
sold the company to Mahindra. And who sold it? Chetan didn't sell it.
mm.
This Global Environment Fund and this Draper Fisher, they own the majority of the company. They
Oh,
wanted out, right?
okay.
And Chetan had to agree, right?
Mm, mm,
That he had to give them the money. So how
mm,
did he give them the money? So he got a
mm,
buyer, right?
mm,
Now, instead of getting a buyer, if he
mm,
had the ability to get a bank to invest
mm,
and take a loan from the bank
mm,
and give the VCs the money that was due to them,
mm,
he would have still owned the company, but he
mm,
didn't know
mm.
whether electric vehicles would take off or not.
Sure.
Okay. So I
Mm,
was part of that whole negotiation that happened with Mahindra. We
mm.
had absolutely no uh, sort of transparency in terms of where will the electric vehicle go. I mean, today you're
Mm,
seeing electric vehicles like, mushroom all over the place, but we
mm.
had we had no visibility at that point in time. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it also depends on these kind of situations. Now, going back to the topic of today's discussion, which is the mind of the person, the first thing you must remember is that the mind is overpowered by the fear of capital.
Okay.
The mind is overpowered by the fear of capital.
Then why is there a surge of investors, pumping in money in startups? And even, I mean, the whole ecosystem of investment has grown so much in last 5 to 8 years. Why is that so when banks was always an option?
So, remember, everything is driven by greed and hope, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you have money, you will want more money.
sure.
And the entire financial world is driven by these two things, greed and hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you actually look at the balance sheets of all these companies, whether you take Ola, you take Flipkart, you take Myntra, you take Oyo, they're all deep red.
Yeah,
Nobody is making money.
yeah.
All this is basically valuation game, which is at any cost acquire consumers. Over a period of time, when your cost starts coming down,
Mm,
you will begin to make more money, is the
mm,
hope that everybody has, right?
mm,
Most of
mm,
the time that hope translates into reality, but
mm,
also many a times it
mm,
translates into disaster, which
mm,
is when the valuation of the company goes down and another
mm.
bigger company comes and gobbles it up.
Yeah.
So this is called the last man standing game, right?
Mm,
There'll
mm-hmm.
be lots of people populating a space with new ideas. The space will grow, consumers will get used to it, and then you will
Mm-hmm.
see over a period of time, all these. So to give an example, in the early days of the browser, there were browsers like Netscape and Alta Vista and
Mm,
things like that. Then
mm.
what happened? Google came and all those companies died,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
similarly, even in any space, this is typically what happens. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why am I telling you all this? The reason I'm telling you all this is for you guys are in the business of helping these chaps
Mm,
acquire customers, right? So remember, there are two marketplaces. There is a physical marketplace where you can actually touch, see, feel, read about the product, right? And then there is a mental marketplace, which is what you feel about the product or the service. Oh, okay. Your job is to basically make these guys win in the mental marketplace. Okay. Now, to win in the mental marketplace, just remember one thing: you need a great story. The most important thing that you need is a great story, because all of us do not buy products; we buy great stories, right? There is no difference between a phone called Realme and another phone called Oppo, or another phone called Vivo. Actually, Oppo and Vivo are the same phone, right? But some people prefer Oppo, some people prefer Vivo because of the story behind each phone. Like one is using Ranveer and the other is using Deepika. Some people like Deepika because they're in love with her, and some people like Ranveer because they like his macho-ness. Whatever, right? There's some story associated with that. So your job is not about, you know, being in the business of PR or being in the business of social media. That's not the job. The job is how do you help these guys craft an interesting story that engages your mind. So let me give you two, three simple, things about the mind. See, our brains are actually, there are three parts to our brain. Just above your spinal cord is the oldest part of your brain. It is called the reptilian brain, and the reason why it is called the reptilian brain is in our very, very, very early avatar, which is maybe 150 million years ago, we were a reptile. That's where we came from. Okay. And therefore the and the and the and the brain which sits just on top of your spinal cord is very, very similar to the brain of a crocodile even today, or a lizard even today. So that's why it's called a lizard brain or a crocodile brain or a reptile brain. The reptile brain has only two functions. One is to reproduce and the other is to survive. That's it. It has no other function. More importantly, it has no sense of time. It lives here and now. Okay. That sitting on top of the reptile brain is a sort of set of brain structures, or set of nerve cells, which are loosely termed as limbic brain or emotional brain. The emotional brain is the king of the brain, right? And it directs the reptile brain. All stories, every single story basically engages the emotional brain, right? A story which does not evoke any emotion, you don't remember, right? And every incident in your life that you remember has a little anecdote, story, documentary associated with it. So what is the biggest part of our brain? The biggest part of our brain is thinking brain, which is the place where language happens, which is the where, like, part of your memory is stored, which is what is analytical. It can project into the future. It can do all kinds of things, right? That is where what we call intelligence. But this intelligence is now, there are some 16 different types of intelligences. So that intelligence which is stored in the big part of your brain, which is called the cortex, is what is called intellectual intelligence, which is our ability to crunch numbers, think of the future and all that kind of stuff. Now, when you want to acquire the customers, the cerebral cortex, which is the biggest part of your brain, plays absolutely no role. The guy who takes the decision is the emotional brain, and the guy who acts is your reptile brain. Just to give an example, your reptile brain is 250 times faster than your thinking brain, which is your cortex. 250 times faster. Okay? You see something, you feel scared. Like if I say that, oh God, there's a cockroach on your hair, you will jump out and start, screaming. Why? Because, in spite of the fact that the cockroach is 1/200th of your size and you can kill it with one shot, but you're still scared of it. Why? Because there is an emotion which triggers that, fight or flight response. Your job is basically to engage that emotional brain and engage it in a way that it triggers the reptile brain, and then surround that with all information that the cortex can say, that was a good decision that you took. That's how our mind works. And remember that in the mind of the startup has two very, very important dimensions. One, there is a lot of hope that they've got a world-beating product on one side, and two, there's a lot of fear that they are doing business with somebody else's money and they're sitting on their heads. So remember, hope is aggressive, hope is positive, hope is colorful, hope is all those positive things, and money is, the color of money is black, right? So these are the two things that you are going to fight with. So many a times when you go to a startup company, they will ask for the moon, but they will say that, we are a startup, we don't have that kind of money. How many of you have heard that we are a startup and we don't have that kind of money? I can tell you that you guys didn't get paid, I think, by lithium. It's not that they don't want to pay you. They will find every single excuse to postpone that expenditure. That's how it works. And it doesn't matter whether Sanjay is my friend or Ashwin is my friend or Sridhar is my friend. That's how all startups work. Okay. So what is the way out? I mean, how do you counter two things? One is, how do you layer more hope on that hope on one side, and how do you counter the fear of capital on the other side? Just 1 second. Somebody saying anything? Oh no. So is there anybody who wants to ask me any questions up to here? Because I've got
Yeah. Dada, I'll ask you a question.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
See, the thing is like this. So the point you said about the story and everything about Oppo and all that is very correct, because that's an advertising story. The problem with PR, as you know, is that the first big story with Vishal Krishnan or with ET or whatever is never a problem. Yeah.
Mhm.
When lithium was launched, I'm giving you the same example.
Mm.
Some fantastic work. I mean, for a company of its size, we
Mm.
probably got many more things
Mm.
than what they probably deserve. But
Mm.
the challenge is now once I have set a story and it appears in one publication,
Mm.
it comes online. Then every bugger has seen it.
Mm.
But you just wrote about it, and the company has not done anything different. See, the other big problem with lithium is, say 100 cars became 150 cars, became 500. He'll say 1,500 cars, but you would probably have 500 cars, whatever. But that's okay. I'm okay with all that.
Mm.
But the new things are not happening, and this is one of the challenges that we as a PR company keep facing, because once somebody has written something about it,
Mm.
the next media,
Mm.
and we are constantly the job, the KRA of a PR person is to come up with new stories either on HR or say driver training. I mean, we have done every possible. I'm not trying to give you an excuse or anything. I'm just trying to tell you some of the challenges.
Mm.
So what could be other new things that you can talk about
Yeah, I'll just come to that.
yeah, that's one thing that we are constantly facing with clients whom we have done some work with for some time.
Yeah. So given the fact that everybody wants to be famous, so people want to see their names and their companies and their pictures
Correct.
on television, on newspaper, etc.
Yeah.
But the world of media has changed, because if you see the media that you consume, is not necessarily a publication, which is printed on paper or printed on your screen. You consume, basically, if you look at it from the user side or the consumer side, you consume information, you consume stories, right? uh, Lithium has got 1,000 cars is a piece of information. What is a story, right? Now you can keep on building on a story.
Yeah.
The story could be, for example, how David took on a Goliath. The Goliath is, all these big transport companies like Bhagirathi and SRS and VRL. How these two guys who came from nowhere. Remember what I started with, the word upstart, right? And what does the word upstart means? Rising out of nowhere, and they're very arrogant. That's the meaning of the word. So if you take the arrogance out of it, and if you just say that came out of nowhere,
That was the only thing I was experiencing, though. Okay. No, I got it.
The thing is-
I'm saying this is one of the challenges that we are constantly facing with startups. See, in a well-established company, they will talk about HR, they will talk about financial results, they'll talk about, some new vice president joining, they'll talk about a new product launch. So they constantly, if I work for Kevin Care or ITC Foods, every day there is something happening. Today they will do sanitizer, tomorrow they will do ventilator, something and all they'll do. So constantly they are in the news. Whereas in the case of a startup, this is one of the challenges, that after the first salvo that we fire with media and social media, we seem to be stuck for new
Yeah.
opportunities.
So the truth is you're stuck, right?
Yeah.
Now say, how do you become unstuck? So the way you approach a Kevin Care or way you approach an ITC has to be different compared to the way
Exactly.
you approach
Exactly.
a startup. You have to find the stories. They don't know how to give you the story. The most important thing is you have to find the story. And you have to have probes in the market to find those stories, which is what investigative work is all about, right? That how do you dig out stories, right? You can dig out stories based on a driver and how his life has changed. You can, and I'm just giving an example from lithium. The other thing that you must remember is that in the process of digging out stories, you have to keep one thing in mind, which is these stories first need to be communicated internally, which is inside your organization, right? So that everybody says, hey, that's an interesting thing. And people will come out with various ways of exposing the story. It has to be communicated inside the startup organization, because many of those guys working in startup, they are working 18, 20 hours a day, and they have no time to do anything, right? And they don't, many of them don't know the story. So building an internal communication culture, which basically your sort of propagates these stories, is also one of the ways of making yourself uh, completely, like, they can't do without you.
Yeah.
The most
I think
important.
that's where we have failed, because in a Kevin Care or in a ITC Foods,
Hmm.
there is a Brandcom or there's a Madison, and they will constantly call us, and we will be in touch with them, and the team knows, and whatever, there are media contacting them because they're big companies. So here, I think the onus is on us to actually, create opportunities far more than the traditional client.
Yes, and
Mhm.
to do that, I mean, you have to take ownership of that company in your head, which is
Mm.
that you are part of that team. So it is
Which is
not
the
it is not
which
a
is the other.
transactional thing.
Yeah, okay. I'll come to the related question.
Huh.
So he'll say you're the part of the team. Hey, Sridhar, you're like this, you're like that, and all. I'm talking of your great friend,
Hmm.
but he will not pay me more than 50,000 bucks.
No, so we are
So
coming
that
to.
is. So I feel,
Hmm.
why should I go to this bagaya who pays me 50,000 bucks and treats me badly? I'll go to somebody else who pays me 2.5 lakhs. So this is another problem that we have of, we are being under, what shall I say, underpaid
Hmm.
and badly treated.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's one more dimension I want to add to
Yeah,
that.
please.
They
Who is
they, they
please?
always look at PR as a direct engine to aid in their sales. So more or less, we always find ourselves in a situation where we are constantly talking about the ROI. So the
Hmm.
clarity of what PR can deliver, I
Hmm.
mean, risk is very limited. So related to what Sridhar sir was saying, we worked with another startup who came to us in the beginning, and then they came to us again. Now,
Hmm.
this time they wanted a mandate
Hmm.
before they raised funds. So
Hmm.
the whole conversation was,
Hmm.
I want you guys to help me with 5 stories. And he named those 5 publications which investors read.
Hmm.
Okay. And he wanted his stories to be planted. Now, we were able to get a couple of meetings, but he's not ready to give out numbers. He's not ready to give out the, investor's name.
Hmm.
And we found ourselves in a fix because we can only provide a platform for the startup and media to meet. It is then the job of the startup to narrate the story in a manner which is exciting enough for the publication to write, because now relationships with media does not give us coverage. So
Hmm.
this is the third dimension that I wanted to add.
Hmm.
The clarity that PR, the kind of work that PR can do for their business.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just.
So
This is a very, very good question. So this is a challenge that you will constantly face, and therefore the way to look at this challenge is to see it from through different lenses. First is, you have defined yourself as a PR agency. That is a very old definition. In my head, there is, and what is a PR agency? You're going to give me some column centimeters in a newspaper. I'm not interested in that column centimeter. I am interested in owning the mind of the investor. In this case that you have said, I'm interested in owning the mind of the investor. Number one. Number two is, I'm also interested in scaling the business, which means I want to own the mind of the consumer, right? So the most important thing to establish is a belief about this company, a belief about the company's product. Because what is the belief? Belief is an idea that owns the mind. If you don't establish belief, you will not get the money. As simple as that. Okay. So you have to stop thinking of yourself when you work with these companies, because they had no clue about what is PR. And see, one of the areas where these companies have absolutely no clue, because most of these companies come from functional expertise, and primarily like technology expertise, is they underestimate the investment required in marketing, which includes your PR and advertising and social media and digital, etc., etc. And they have no clue the impact it has because they do not understand the mental marketplace. So you have to think of yourself differently. You can't say that we are a PR agency. You're not a PR agency. I have never thought of Brandcom as a PR agency. I've thought of Brandcom as a partner that I need to have who will help me establish my idea, establish my brand, establish my the benefits of associating with me in somebody's mind, right? And if they say that getting column centimeters in newspaper or getting TV time is a total waste of time, what you need is constant presence in LinkedIn. What you need is constant presence in financial, like moneycontrol.com. You need constant presence in, and therefore you don't need big stories. You need snippets. It's like Lego pieces in your head. You need to have a big plan, which is that if I put these 25 pieces together, it will form a big story, right? And that's how it works. It is, it is not about one big story. It is about many small interesting stories that get connected together over a period of time, and that is what helps them own the mind. Okay, can you give me one or two examples? Let me see if I have been able to explain this concept to you. Can you give me one or two examples of this? Think of all the products that you use. Anyone?
I don't know if I got the question right. Can you just
I'm saying
help?
that
Uh,
think of a brand or a company which has many small stories, little stories all over the place, right? There's not one big story. There's one small story. There are a collection of many small stories, but somebody is minding the lattice work of that story, which is like you're playing with a Lego piece. The guy who designed the Lego piece knows that it will convert itself into an aeroplane, right? If you put the
yeah,
pieces right.
I'll go with Xfino. It's a startup actually. They
Yeah,
are in the HR space, and when you
yeah.
say small stories, so they came up with a report
Hmm.
on hiring or something like that. I don't remember the exact topic,
Hmm.
and they ensured that every story that comes out on that subject has a quote from Xfino.
Hmm.
So I did not see them having big blast of media coverage, in a week or 2 weeks time, but I saw them being
Hmm.
present in like every possible story. So that
So
comes on top of my mind.
think of this now, that all of us are publishers, correct? All of us. You are a publisher, I am a publisher, Sridhar is a publisher, Purva is a publisher, Ria is a publisher, everybody is a publisher, right? Why? Because we are all the time publishing. No? We are publishing on WhatsApp, we are publishing on Facebook, we are publishing on LinkedIn, we are publishing on Reddit, we are publishing on Quora. All these are the new publications. These are the publications of the new world, and the new world has got full of publishers. And what do we publish? We don't publish information. We publish stories. Now think of that you have a crew who are constantly publishing these small stories all over the place. And then these stories come together and become a big story. Right?
Yeah, yeah, I got.
But
And
then that also should tie back to our deliverables, right? Because at the
then
end
you
of the day, we are
negotiate
serving a
you cannot negotiate your deliverables as we are a PR agency. Okay, so we will come to the deliverables on one side. So
Mm.
I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah,
I'm
sure. I got it. I got
telling
it.
you what to do. I'm just trying to make you think. Which is when you deal with a startup company, that is a completely different animal compared to an established company like ITC or a Cabin Care. So you have to go to them with a totally different bent of mind. I'll give an example of my company and our team. Most of the time, I mean, we've been around for 15 years, and a majority of that 15 years we've spent working with big companies. Okay, so in big companies, we either do projects or we are on retainer, and they pay us well. Then we said, look, this is getting boring. Let's try our hand with some startup business, and we burnt our fingers. The reason why we burnt our fingers is we approached them with the same mindset of
A big company. Yeah.
a big company.
Yeah.
It didn't work. So now what do? We said, look, we are going to be part of your team. We will embed ourselves. You won't get full time, but we will embed ourselves in your company, and we will help you. So we don't work with too many companies. We work with a limited number of companies. Number one. Number two is you have to consider us as people who are giving you seed fund. But the seed fund is coming in the form of ideas, it's coming in the form of expertise, it's coming in the form of knowledge, it's coming in the form of skills, which has taken all of us put together 100 years of our time, right? And there is a value to that, right? And that value to that has to be converted into equity that you give us, right? So now all the companies that we work with, uh, we have an equity in the company. Now what is the range of that equity? The range of that equity is between, over a period of 3 years, between 1 to 2.5, 3%, depending on what you do. Okay.
Sunanda Yaro?
Sorry.
Sorry, sir. No, carry on.
Now many of them will negotiate with you for a lower equity, and they'll say we'll pay you some fees. Now, the trick is to negotiate in such a way that the fees is low and equity is high. That's one way of doing it. So that is one state of negotiations that we do. Second thing we do is decide who do we want to work with. Do we want to work with everybody, or do we want to work with some people? Many a times what happens is these startups come to you through your network. You're not pitching for any business. Very rarely, these go in for a pitch. You know, those, those startup guys also have their own network, and they sort of reach out uh, to various people. You have to be very clear at what stage you get in, given the fact that Brandcom is now a fairly large company, in terms of your business, and you belong to a bigger network. It may not be a bad idea to enter at the VC stage, because that is the stage when companies have a lot of money. Okay, that's number one. Number two is you have to find a way of getting on the VC platform. There are many VC platforms where you can make a, which is what I'm saying is, Brandcom promotes itself on those platforms to say that if you guys want to win in the mental marketplace, then the company that you should be working with is Brandcom, and then you have to build on that proposition. What happens is all these companies are looking for such kind of partners. All these VCs, they are looking for such kind of partners. Okay, why? Because they know that without the help of a professional company, these founders will go and splurge money all over the place. If you really look at it, and if you think, where does the money go after you have, and I'm not talking about companies like Lithium, which are very asset heavy companies, but which are asset light companies, which is like in the services business or in some other business which is to do with retail or whatever. Fintech companies, for example, where does the money go? The money is spent in hiring people and paying their salaries, and it goes in acquisition of business. That's where the money goes. And the VCs are aware of this, that many of these guys actually go and say they will hire a big agency, or they will hire a big producer, and they'll spend a lot of money, building a big campaign, and then it won't work. All kinds of things will happen. I think you have an opportunity there.
Yeah,
And
I think what we have done is, that point you made about you cannot be approaching them like a PR company. I think that's probably where we fail. And, we have not gone to them as a communication partner who will help them on strategy.
yeah,
We have gone more like, so I think it's also a question of, we need to have our offering. See, our offering also is now saying what work we have done for startups. I mean, that's okay. But, if you position yourself completely, differently on the lines of what you're suggesting, then your whole pricing, everything is different, no? Because you're seen not as a PR company who's getting you coverage. See, because
Yeah.
even the thing of saying I will get you 4 deliverables or whatever, I think we have to stop speaking that language
Yeah.
for these people at least,
Yeah.
because they don't understand it, and they are see how you can link it with their objectives and goals in terms of what they want to achieve, and see how our communication strategy can help them realize that those goals. Then they see us in a different light, and then the pricing and the positioning of ourselves, everything will change, I guess.
See,
That's to me mind the key takeout of today's session.
also the other thing that you got to figure out is which are the domains that you will want to attack.
Okay.
Not all domains may be good for you. It may
Okay.
be good for some other company, but not all domains are
Yeah.
good for you, right?
Sure.
Because if you really look at your skills are in public relation building, right?
Yeah.
That's where your skills are. uh, so for example, if there is a if there's a company which is like ID, for example, this
Mm. Mm.
this food company called ID,
Yeah.
right? They are constantly innovating. They've launched this vada make, this vada pack, and then there is the coffee pack. They're constantly innovating. And the most important thing is for them is geographical expansion. That how because you see the state where they are in, they are now heavily VC funded, and if I'm not mistaken, they will go for an IPO very soon, right?
Mm.
Which means that they are going to now really corporatize and expand their business. So hiring good people will be a big challenge, right?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Deeper acquisition of consumers is going to be a big
Mm.
challenge.
Mm.
Acquisition of their distribution network is going to be a big challenge. There are many areas that you can intervene, and you got to figure out how are you going to play that game. This is not about get me column centimeters or get me TV time. That game is over, right?
Mm.
That game is finished.
Mm.
How do you get people to instigating stories? How do you instigate stories, right? And stories which people write, right? I mean, just to give you an example, this Sushant Singh Rajput committed suicide, right?
Yeah.
There are as many theories about why he committed suicide as there are number of people writing about him, right?
Correct.
Fact of the matter is that suddenly this guy who nobody knew has now suddenly become, because everybody is publishing about him, has suddenly become, like he's trending, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get some a story to trend? And the other thing, okay, so just before I finish, the last part is, remember there are three or four uh, sort of characteristics of these companies. One is they are small, therefore they don't have resources, right? And they don't understand the power of an organization. So they are still a team, who are working together. Secondly, they work like mad people. They are so fast you can't imagine. You can't tell them that, Acha, I will come back to you after 1 week.
Mm.
They'll say, I want it in the evening, boss.
Mm.
Right? So they are very fast paced. For them, everything is here and now. So that is what you got to be sort of,
Sure.
prepared for. Third is they're extremely adaptive. I'll give you an example of adaptive. So we work with a company called Big Five Technologies, and they make a brand of garments called Terms, TURMS, Terms. Now, because of this lockdown, term sale became zero, right?
Mm.
You know what they did? Overnight, they got into manufacturing masks, and they figured out a way of making hand sanitizers, and now they've got a kind of a safety pack, which is mask and sanitizers put together, right? Parallelly, my biggest client, which is IFB, who make the alcohol with which sanitizers are made,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Also wanted to get into sanitizers. Okay,
Mm.
Big Five got into the market in 10 days.
Mm.
IFB took 6 weeks. That is the difference.
Mm. Mm.
So they are highly adaptive. They will take a chance. Big companies don't take a chance.
Yeah, you
They-
can't take a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, big companies don't take a chance because they have so much to lose.
Yeah.
And remember that it is important to constantly have a dialogue and a source of inspiration to the founder, because it is the founder's vision on which the company is built on. They need somebody to rap with. Okay, so in terms of your relationship, don't make it a vendor, buyer relationship. Make them look up to you, right? The moment you make them look up to you, they will come to you, and then you will have the power to to negotiate. Okay, so that's basically like what I had to say as far as the
Okay.
mind of a startup is concerned.
Sure.
So I hope
Anybody has any questions? I found it very useful. Thanks, SG. Any questions?
I
Priyanka?
have one question.
Yeah,
This is
please.
Praveen here. So
Yeah.
many years ago, one of my clients said this to my seniors. I was standing beside him.
Huh.
Sridhar rightly said we started work with Mintra. We couldn't continue the journey with them. Now they are somewhere and we are here. So
Hmm.
one of my clients said, and it is still stuck, I have that mental scar where the client said, you guys should learn to evolve with your clients.
Yeah.
Okay, so any thoughts on this? How have you evolved with your clients? What is the evolution phase? Why some of the people fail when the client has a lot of money and when he has the buying power of working with a larger agency or a team?
Hmm.
That's when he doesn't want to work with you because you are part of the initial journey only.
Hmm. So, that's why I said that you need to embed yourself in the organization. Okay. Which is they must feel that you are part of them, and you are working with them, and you're sharing their pain, they're sharing their dream, and sharing their journey. It's about going on the same journey. Most of the time, what happens is, so I'll give you this same company that I was talking to you about terms. They had engaged with Ogilvy. Okay. And so, Sridhar, you will be pleased to know that their board consists of many of our friends. So one of them is Biju Kurian.
Okay.
So Biju called me, and there's another guy. I don't know if you know him, Rajesh Ramaya. Rajesh used to, I think you know him. He used to be the finance head of Riva. Uh,
Mm.
so he is now managing Azim Premji's fund, Premji Invest.
Okay. Okay.
So both of them called me and said, SG, this is this company we've invested it in, and please help. We will engage with Celsius on a professional basis. I said sure. Having burnt my fingers many times, and having being part of so many startup companies, I realized that I have to go in there like a plasticine, which is I will adapt. I told you about being adaptive. I will adapt myself to their needs. Okay. And uh, and and one of their needs, as I figured out, was that how do I sell technology to big fabric manufacturers? They don't know. So I'm sitting with them and making their presentations, right? So that is what I'm saying, that
Okay.
you've got to be part of them. You've got to
Sure.
work with them, make the simple things, make and I'm not talking about big things. I'm talking about small things. Presentations, make them look great, right? This is one big area, right, where they don't know how to make good presentations. That's one. Second is help them, and not as a giver of gyan, but as a participant of the journey. Let them believe that you are a member of that team which is making this journey towards whatever fame or growth or whatever. That's all. It's all about it's all about a different kind and scale of relationship. It is not what we have all grown up with. It took me a long time, Sridhar, to get rid of my
Yeah.
assumptions, and with what we've all grown up in a particular culture. This is a totally different culture, was a completely different culture. So, like Praveen said, that this client expects you to evolve with them.
Yeah.
So where is the evolution? It can't, evolution can't happen in a buyer seller relationship.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's
Got it.
more, it's more like a marriage.
Sure.
Okay, so I hope you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, SG. We really, I found it really useful, and I think we need to do some serious soul
Yeah.
searching of how we're going to make this vertical very important for us? How are we going to change our presentations, the way we look? Like, for example, I don't know if Apurva or Abnish, are you guys part of this call?
Yes, I am here.
You are. You are. So, for example, yesterday this guy was there, right? Now, this is a venture which is in a very early stage, and if you guys can really throw yourself into it and give him a lot of things, because I don't think he's got a big setup. So any contribution, any observation, anything that we do which he has not noticed so far is one way of telling him that we are part of the journey. So I think we need to just look at whatever opportunities we have, so that we, and also in many of the startups we have young people, so we also have a fair degree of young people. So I think we should figure out ways of infiltrating this and trying to get into the thing. Yes. Okay, thanks a lot, SG. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Appreciate it and very useful, SG.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Stay
Thank you
safe. Have
so
a good
much.
weekend. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you.